Welcome back. God is good. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Corb Heath. And Corb is the father of one of my very dear friends, Tyler, who does all the back end audio stuff of the podcast, who's my gym partner, and who also is just someone I love dearly. And I feel very privileged that not only have I been able to get to know Tyler, but I've been able to get to know you and your family. And we've had some really awesome conversations together. And I just so admire you for your testimony and the life that you've been able to build for yourself and for your family. So I'm really excited to have a conversation with you today. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been great to know you and having you in the house and having some awesome conversations around the dinner table and around the island. So this is going to be fun.
Great. Thanks. I want to dive into first how you were introduced to the gospel, like how you were raised and like what got you interested in the gospel, and we can just run from there. You have a crazy story, and let's start there.
Okay, so I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada. I grew up on the north side of town, and so that for your viewers, the north side of town, where I grew up, is very poor and predominantly at that time was predominantly black. So we had a saying was where the houses are pink and the Cadillacs are purple. So that's where I grew up. So anything D Street and above, that's north side. I grew up really poor. I was in high density, low income housing, as they would say. Typically, as a white person in that side of town, I was the minority, without a doubt. Growing up was interesting. My dad was a drunk, and alcohol and drugs were really prevalent in the house. We did not grow up LDS at all. It was a very abusive situation there in the house for me and my sister. Something that as a kid, as you see things happening with your sister and there's nothing you can do about it, it's pretty heartbreaking. And it's something I'll never forget. And I think that's one of the reasons why my sister and I are really close. Like, she's like one of my best friends, and when she came up, she was just here this last weekend, and just made my day when she's here, because we are definitely pals. So we have a tight bond because of those experiences growing up, and that will never be broken. I grew up very poor. I was on the north side of town. Went to predominantly black schools my whole time there. And to put that in perspective, things are pretty good in elementary. It's not too bad. You start to get in junior high, and then there's starts to be a division of race. And you get to a point where if you're white and you're a minority with the school, you're almost immediately asked to prove yourself physically. It's like going into prison. They're gonna test you, probe you.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So I can remember my first day in junior high. I'm sitting in math class in the 7th grade, and I got jumped from behind in the middle of class.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it was quite interesting. But the whole thing is that we made a mess of the classroom. They had police at the time. They had police at the school, and police came and broke it up. And the reason why the person who jumped me wanted to fight me or hit me is because he didn't like the way I dressed. So, So it was really interesting. It was like that way through junior high and into high school. High school, I had been taught myself as well to, fight with my fists and got in high school. Baseball bats came out, knives came out. So it was a very different atmosphere. It was pretty tough growing up. But so through junior high, it was like that. High school was like that. When I hit 15, because of the situation in my home, I remember I was 15 years old, about to turn 16, and it was January, and my dad and my mom at that time were separated, and we were still living in our little tiny apartment. And my dad came over, and it was about 2:00 in the afternoon. He came over, and he was drunker than all get out. And he knocked on the door, and I made the mistake of opening the door. And he came in the door and wanted to know where my mom was at. And my mom was at work at the time, and he was going to sit there. He decided he was going to stay there and drink and then wait for my mom to come home, which was never a good thing. And I told him I was 15. My dad's really big, like my size that I am now. So I'm 15. I would have made him 35 at the time. He's 20 years older than me.
Wow.
Okay? So he's a big boy, very strong still. And so what happened is that I asked him to leave the house. And I remember we were standing in the living room, the small little living room, and he turned around to go to the door. And I made the mistake of looking down, and he turned around and he sucker punched me and hit me, and then the fight ensued. We made a mess of the living room, and then I had the sensation of glass breaking around my back. He threw me through a glass window, and believe it or not, for a split second, if you've ever had that experience, glass actually does bend, and you can feel it. And I went through a glass window, and I had glass in my back and in my face all over.
Oh, jeez.
At 15. And I remember screaming for help, and everybody, looking out, it was there was a lot of people around, but people just ignoring the situation, not helping. And I was just asking, pleading for help. And finally, we had a guy down the street heard, and he came out, and he called the police, and he threatened my dad, told my dad that the police were on the way, he better leave. And my dad left, but I was hurt pretty bad, but I didn't know what to do, and I was still in shock, and I was scared, he was going to come back with a gun. And he had done that before. I remember as a little kid, my mom and I and my sister, my mom packed us up into her she had a VW Bug, old beaten up VW Bug. And one night she packed us up in the Bug, and I remember that we were going to leave and get away from him. And as we were leaving down the road, he showed up. He coming home from the bar, and he was drunker than all get. He was in his old pickup truck, and he turned around, and he saw us on the road. He turned around and he rammed us from behind and ran us off the road.
Jeez.
And I remember him pulling. I was in the passenger seat. My mom was there. My sister was in the back. And I remember him pulling my mom out, and he pulled out a what's called a dirty hairy gun. So Magnum 45 caliber handgun, but really big handgun. And he pointed at my mom, and then I had gotten out to go help my mom, and I got over, and he pointed the gun at me and put the barrel of the gun to my head, and he said, "If you ever try to leave me, I'm going to kill you." It was that kind of bad situation.
Wow.
So fast forward to that fight when I was 15. I was worried he was going to come back with his gun, because I thought he's going to come back, he's going to kill us all. And even though the police were coming, I had to get out of there. So I walked out of the apartment complex that we were in, and I started walking down the road, thinking I got to head south, and I got to head west. If I do that, I go south and west. They're nicer homes, people that have that should be up or should be home who can help me out. And I walked and I walked and I walked and I walked like what seemed like a couple miles. And I just had this feeling like I should go knock on that door. And I went up to the door and I knocked on the door, and this lady answered the door, and she screamed. And the reason why she screamed is I was just bleeding all over. I had glass fragments in my face. I was just bleeding everywhere. She screamed, and she went and got a white cloth, and gave it to me, and I started picking glass out of my face. And she put the cloth over my face, and it was just covered. The white cloth was just saturated in blood. Anyways, what's interesting about that house is that the feeling I got is because that lady, she called her husband and said, "Hey, you need to come home. We got a situation here. I need you home now." Unfortunately, he was a construction owner. He raced home, came home. And what was interesting about the whole situation is that he was a bishop in a church, in an LDS ward there. Didn't know him from Adam, never met him before. And so that was kind of like I think that was heaven sent, right? That interaction. From there, from there that night, he helped me out, kind of got me, taken care of with all my cuts and everything. And then from that time out, I never went back home. I left the house permanently. I remember I had a small little duffel bag, and I had some socks and a couple T-shirts and a pair of Levi's. That was about it.
Wow.
And so I kind of bounced from couch to couch, from friend's house to friend's house. And then fortunately, at that time, I was a pretty big kid. I was working at the time. I was bagging groceries at Vaughn Supermarket there in Vegas. And then I graduated to working in construction, and got a really good paying job working in construction at the time. I think it was making so when I started construction, I was making a big $7 an hour. That was big bucks back in the day, $7 an hour, right? And so started working construction, and as Tyler will tell you, I'm a mad saver. I've always been a crazy saver. I was able to save enough money to get a vehicle, an old pickup truck. And I was able to drive at that time. I started driving illegally at 15 to get around town, but I passed as a 16-year-old, right? So I was driving at 15 around town to go from job to construction site. And then I got into high school, I went to a predominantly black high school in Vegas. And there again, as I got into high school, you had to prove yourself. And I remember I was on the basketball court, outside the basketball court, just shooting the basketball by myself. And 3 black guys came up, and one guy threw a basketball at my head, hit me in the head, and I turned around and I threw my basketball back at him. Fortunately for me, his friend that was with him said to him, his name was Lamont Duke, really great guy, great athlete. He told this guy, his name was Robert Porter. He told Robert Porter, he said, "You don't want to mess with him. That white boy is crazy." So they didn't mess with me. But the problem is that at that school, all the other white kids were getting picked on. And one white kid in particular, who I kind of got to know and got to like a lot, they kind of picked on him. They were always picking on him. And we became friends. And the reason why we became friends is because he was different from everybody else. And I'd go to his house, and his house didn't smell like smoke, and his house didn't have alcohol in it. And there was pictures of Jesus up on the wall. And what I didn't know at the time, and I soon found out, his dad was a stake president. So, and his name was, I was President Prince, and my friend's name was Danny Prince. And through Danny is really what drove me to become a member of the church. And so it was just a very, I felt like I was guided. Definitely guided during those early days, guided by the Lord and meeting certain people, out of all the houses on the west side of town, to pick that one house that was the house of a bishop, and then to befriend a person whose dad happens to be a stake president, right? That's not a coincidence,
no,
right?
Yeah.
No, not at all. During my whole time in high school, like I said, I bounced around quite a bit, and it was just really interesting. Didn't have a lot, but I didn't need a lot. And then, so eventually I got baptized and was a member of the church, and was trying to figure out the whole church thing. And decided, as I was working construction and I was trying to go to school, it was really hard. It was a hard thing to support myself and do everything at the same time. And I remember I'd go to school, high school. In high school, I'd go to work in the morning. I'd go 4 o'clock in the morning and go to work. And I'd go to work till about 7, and then go to school. And then afterwards, I'd go back to work. And just, it was just every day. And then there were times where in my truck, I would sleep in the back of my truck in the back parking lot of the high school. And I remember one time, again, I was blessed. The high school wrestling coach showed up early for school one day and parked right next to my truck and got out and saw me sleeping in the back of my pickup truck. And he handed me a key to the locker room so I could take a shower. And so I had a key to the locker room now so I could take showers while I was going to high school. So that was basically my high school years was really just kind of survival, trying to get through, trying to figure out who I am, trying to figure out what I want to do. The whole time I knew that there was something better for me. I knew that that the life that my parents had lived, I didn't want to live that life. It was awful. And so, I tried to hang out with other high school kids that were LDS. Had a hard time because in that time of Vegas was pretty small, and you knew a lot of people. And because we were white trailer trash, a lot of the LDS kids didn't want to hang out with me, nor did they want to hang out with my sister. And I always remember that. They did want to hang out with us because sometimes we weren't good enough. I felt like we weren't good enough. But anyways, we get through high school, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. I do a semester at UNLV and work in construction. And I just got to think, I don't want to be a ditch digger my whole life. I can't do this. I don't know what's going on. And I remember, because I was still relatively new to the church, I was still with the priests. My bishop had me with the priests. And I remember one day he went around the table and he said, he just challenged every priest, are you on a mission? Are you going on a mission? Are you going on a mission? And there was 10 of us around that table. And they got to me and said, are you going to go on a mission? I said, yeah, I think I am. And when I said that, everybody else laughed because they knew my history. They knew who I was. I was really rough around the edges, very tough. People didn't mess with me. Was more of a, I looked like more I should belong in a bar than in a bishop's office. And so it's kind of how it was, though. So anyways, fast forward, I decided to put in my papers in when I turned 19 in January of that year. And back in the day, every mission was different, meaning that every mission cost differently. So you could go to Hawaii or you could go to Japan. And back in the 80s, you pay $800 a month to go to Japan.
That's crazy.
That's like $2,500 now a month to go on a mission.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, right? Or you go to Hawaii, or you can go to London, and the costs were very different for each mission. And so when I went and submitted my papers, my bishop asked me, he said, so we've got this situation, I need to explain it to you. So explain the whole situation with how each mission costs differently. And he says, on the paper it said, do you have any circumstances that would prevent you from serving in any areas of the world? And I just flat out told him, look, I got $6,000, which back then was a lot of money. I heard myself. I got $6,000. Let's do the math and see what does that work out to. Well, we worked it out to it was literally after you paid for, we figured out paying for all my, if I was going to get missionary clothes and all the things like that. We figured I could afford about $100 a month, $105 a month for a mission. So he put that down. We said $105 a month. So we submitted my paperwork in January of that year. Well, how long do missionaries take to get their mission calls now? A couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, if that.
If that,
it's
right?
fast.
It's really fast, right?
Yeah.
So I did that in January of that year. It was January of 86. February went by, March went by, June went by, July went by, nothing. August, nothing. I go talk to my bishop. We're mid-August. I tell my, and I'm really still relatively new to the church. I don't know how this process works. And I tell my bishop, I said, hey, I haven't heard anything. You heard anything? He goes, no, I haven't. This is really strange. I said, I don't know how this works, but if they don't want me to serve a mission, would they just let me know so that I can go on with my life? Because I want to start school back up again at UNLV. I was planning on going back to UNLV. I said, I just need to know. And so if they don't want me to serve, I understand. I will just go back to school and keep working construction as well. And he said, no, don't. He goes, let's not do that. He goes, let me make a phone call. So he called up to the MTC, and then he called the missionary department. And the missionary department had answer the phone, and he said, yeah, we've got Elder Heath's name right here up on the board. He got his picture. We don't have a spot for him yet, but we still have it here. We have him here, so tell him not to give up hope yet. And so it became the end of August. Missionary department called my bishop and said, can Elder Heath be here in 2 weeks? We got a place for him. We're going to, if you say yes right now, we're going to send his paperwork out to you, and it'll be a done deal. You'll get it. You should get it in the mail in a couple days, and then you've got a week and a half to get everything together and go. And he called me that night, got a hold of me, and I said, yeah, I can do that. Let's do it. And so soon thereafter, it was a couple days thereafter, 5 days, 6 days after the paperwork showed up at the bishop's house, and it was my call. I opened it up, and I couldn't even pronounce the name of the mission then at that time. But I was called to serve in the Guatemala Quetzaltenango mission, which is formerly known as the Jungle Mission. And I don't know if you remember, as most missionaries, they get a list of items that they need to bring on their mission. Well, my items there weren't any suits or anything like that on the list. I had hiking boots, I had jeans, I did have white shirts and ties. I had camping gear, I had a backpack, I had a sleeping bag, I had a hammock. And that's what was really interesting. I'm like, wow, this is going to be different. And my bishop was just totally floored. He was like, wow, this is definitely going to be a different mission. So, I went on a camping mission. So it's called to Guatemala. And so I remember we hurriedly got my hiking boots, got all my camping gear, literally got all my camping gear.
That is so crazy.
Crazy, right?
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. And I'm like wondering, we're like, no, suitcases aren't going to cut it because you're going in the jungle. This is going to be really different. So we actually had, he just ended up said, you know what? I think you go to BYU, go down to the Wilk. He says, there's a place called the Wilk, and they've got a bookstore there. He says, maybe you can find something there. He goes, well, pack your regular suitcase. Pack your stuff in a regular suitcase. But when you get there, you can swap it out. Maybe swap it out for something bigger. So funny thing is so my bishop, I'm like, okay, so how do I get up to the MTC? Like, I can't, I have my truck, but it's not going to make it because it's super old. It's not going to make it all the way up there. So I'm like, how do I get up there? He's like, I'll take you. So my bishop drove me up there.
Wow.
Dropped me off at the front door, shook my hand, and I walked in. Right?
Oh my gosh.
So I walk in with my suitcases in, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I've got my paperwork, and I walk in, and the presidency of the MDC was standing right there, but I had no idea who they were. They were standing off to the side. I walk in, and so you got to understand, I'm 6'2", I'm like 200 pounds, I'm totally construction, I'm ripped. I'm like total tan, and I got long hair down to here. I'm like, I got long hair. I didn't cut my hair. And I walk in, and I'm looking around, and they went, the president of the MTC goes, are you Elder Heath? I go, yeah, I am. And he goes, we've been waiting for you, and which was really cool. He goes, you go ahead and put your luggage down right there. And he goes, come with me. We're going to go to the barber shop at the Wilk and get your haircut. So the first thing they did is we went to the Wilk.
Let's clean you up a little bit.
Yeah, let's clean you up a little. So we went over to the Wilk. They have the barber shop over there. We went over there, and it's still in the same location that was just there a week or two ago, and it was still there. So we went there and got my haircut and came back over. And then I started my mission, and I remember a couple of very interesting things in my mission. So the first night, other missionaries that got to go in the gym with their parents, and they hugged, and then missionaries go out that door, and family goes out that door, right? Well, I was waiting for them in my room, and so I'm sitting in there waiting for them in my room, and
waiting for the other missionaries.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they all come in, and I meet all of them, and they're all walks of life, really, really cool guys. And we all go to sleep that night, and I wake up at 3:30 in the morning because it's time to go to work. That's how my body, wakes up. So I'm up at 3:30, and I get up, I'm on the top bunk, I jump off, I decided I'm trying not to wake up the other guys, but it's too late. And they're like, Elder Heath, what are you up? I'm like, well, I should be working right now. And they're like, go back to bed. I was like, I couldn't go back to bed, so I just started doing push-ups on the floor or whatnot. So,
oh my gosh!
But that was, anyways. I realized after that time that that I didn't have to do hard labor anymore. It was going to be something different. I was going to work, but it was going to be something very different for me. And I remember going to class the first day, and with my little district. And we had this cute little girl who was a return missionary, tiny thing. She was our teacher, and she wanted to do scripture Jace. And she says, all right, guys, and this will kind of give you an idea how well I knew the gospel at this time.
Because you were at what age were you baptized?
Well, I was baptized at 18.
18?
Right.
Wow.
Right. So.
And then you were how old when you entered the MTC?
So it was 19 and.
That was relatively, that was
Yeah.
very soon after.
Yeah. Yeah. And so she goes, let's do scripture chase. I want everybody to open up your scriptures to Alma. Well, what do? I get out the Old Testament. And that's kind of gives you an idea of what I didn't know about the gospel. But I'm proud to say that after week 2, I was the district leader in the MTC. Because I figured this much. To me, I was like, there are going to be guys in here that know the gospel better than I do, who are smarter than I am, but nobody's going to outwork me. And I made that promise to myself, and nobody ever did.
What did that work look like to you then? No one's going to outwork you. So what was the metric for that?
For me, it was like memorizing the scriptures and reading the scriptures for the first time and then memorizing everything. And then it was getting up physically. It was getting up earlier before everybody else to study and saying my prayers and doing everything I was supposed to do and just giving that extra effort. And as part of giving the extra, instead of giving 100%, giving 110%, giving 120%. And something that stuck with me my whole life, because I figured that if I give 110% of what I'm doing, it's going to put me that much further ahead of everybody else. And that is so true in life. And so, yeah, I had a steep learning curve, but I was on it. I knew it from a spiritual sense that I knew I need to know the scriptures. But I did it. And because of that, I became the DL in the MTC.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That's a really cool. I like that idea of you're not a victim to what situation you're in. You're like, this is what it is, and I'm gonna work really hard and get to the best that I can be.
Yeah, and that has happened through my life. I think when I literally got thrown out of my house by my dad, there were just defining moments in my life where you either can cave in and give up, or you can suck it up and you get going. And I think every time when I've had one of those defining moments, I've just sucked it up and I've got, I'm like, I'm going.
You're a fighter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's for everybody. I think everybody has defining moments in their life that they need to make a decision. You either go down this path or you can go down that path. You can either give up or you can just forge ahead, right? It's trial. I think the saying is trials may come and go. It's not the trial that comes and goes, but it's how you handle it that matters most, right? So
that takes a lot of courage, though. I think of like choosing to go on a mission, everybody laughing at you initially, and then going into the MTC, like you don't even know how to get to the MTC. You walk in, you don't know where you're going. Yeah. That's so intimidating. Yeah. But you just did it. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I always thought too, what's the worst they're going to do? Send me home? They could have, right? I had no idea. I had no idea what that experience was going to be like. But I had an amazing time in the MTC. It was an amazing time.
What was the best thing that came from that?
I just think getting to know the gospel. Everybody else had a head start on me. All the guys that I was in my district, they had been members since they were born, right? They were born into it. And so just to get to know the gospel and get to know and understand it at that level as a 19-year-old, very different, right?
So when you initially joined the church, what was like the main factor, the main motivation for getting baptized?
I wanted something different. I didn't want to do what my parents had done. My dad had come from a line of people of drunks, a line of people who had abused people, and I wanted to break that line, right? I wanted to be very different from my dad, and I am, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, believe it or not, that drug abuse, drug addiction, alcoholism, that gets passed down, and I just wanted to break that cycle.
So why the church versus any other thing that you could have done? What was it about the gospel?
I think it was to start with, it was the people. They were just very different than what I was used to being around, right? No smoke in the house, no alcohol in the house. They were respectful. They were very kind. They had your best interest at heart, right? It was just a very different environment. I mean, I came from a place where my poor mom, she didn't know what to do. And it was in our house, in our home, it was everybody for themselves, because my dad just terrified the three of us. It was my mom, my sister, and me. And it was pretty much survival. And again, he was crazy enough. He was going to kill us if we ever left. And it was a very bad situation. Back in those days, the police didn't get really involved. There was no social services to do anything like that. It just kind of got slid under the rug, so to speak. And so he pretty much got to do whatever he wanted until we got old enough to leave. I left, and then my sister left when she was 18 and never went back. But again, I think I didn't want that. I didn't want that for me, right? So I knew there was something better out there. I didn't want to be a ditch digger or a bouncer the rest of my life, right? Growing up in Vegas, I didn't want to do that. I knew there was something better out there for me.
So there's always like this hope then.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting you say that, because my grandma, she joined the church when she was in Japan. And this was like right after the war. And she didn't know anything about she didn't get any lessons. And the only reason she got baptized was because she said that the missionaries were the only people that smiled at that time. And she said, I want what they have. And then she got baptized, and then she learned everything after,
Yeah.
So it's just a cool testament. Like you talking about how you didn't know where Alma was. You opened up the Old Testament. It's interesting that you didn't know all of like the doctrinal basics, and you didn't need to know that in order to get baptized.
Yeah.
So why did you choose to serve a mission then? Like, it's one thing to get baptized and like become a member, but like to actively choose to, you saved $6,000, and which is a lot of money, and you decided to spend all of that on your mission. Like, why did you decide to go?
Well, again, I think of the examples of the young men, my young men leaders, in my ward were incredible. I had a Bishop O'Rourke. He was amazing. Had another young man leader, Craig Thuitt, who was a great example. And these guys that all served missions, and and I saw what it did, and they talked about their missions. They talked about how it transformed them, and there was just all these great examples of guys who had served missions that had come back, who had started businesses, who were leaders in the community in Vegas that I got to know, and I'm like, wow, that's what I want to do. I want to be like that. I want to be like them. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we get out on the mission field, and it was, we fly into Guatemala City, and mission president shows up, and he starts talking to us in Spanish, and he's talking 10 times faster than we ever talked in the MTC.
Of course.
Very wild. Yeah, but, we're in Quetzaltenango Mission, which is on the west side of Guatemala, and they put us on a chicken bus. So I don't know if you know what a chicken bus is, but essentially it's an old school bus, and they pack it full of people, and they put all your belongings on top, and there are people hanging off outside the windows, people that are on the back of the bus, people that are on top of the bus.
Oh gosh.
And you're going down bumpy. There's no paved highways. It's just bumpy dirt roads.
Oh my gosh.
And you're just going from miles at a time, and you go for hours at a time trying to get to your mission.
That sounds horrible.
It was quite interesting, and I served I served in some really cool places, but places where there was no running water or lights, we bathed a lot in my mission. We'd stand on a rock in your shorts and a t-shirt, and you go get a bucket of brown water from the river, and you throw it on the top of your head, and then you wash up and get another bucket of brown water, you wash over again.
That is so crazy.
Yeah, I think it was very, very, very interesting. I remember when looking back, and I remember when I got called my mission, I thought to myself, physically I think I can handle almost anything. But my mission was really tough. It was tough on all the missionaries. And we went to a mission, there wasn't a lot of American missionaries at the time in that mission. And it was physically demanding. It was a really physical demanding mission. Just to give you an idea, when I left the MDC, I was about 220. I gained some good weight. But I was also working out, so I was still really in good shape. I was at 220 when I left to go on my mission. I came home at 130 pounds. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got typhoid. I got malaria on my mission.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, dysentery like you wouldn't believe. It was bad.
But you're like sleeping outside.
Yeah. I mean, we had hammocks. I would sleep in a hammock. There were some areas that I got to open up, and you would sleep. You would literally go from, there's a mountain or volcano. We're going to go from that volcano over to that volcano, and you would just walk the trails. And that was
your area.
That was my area. And you go from village to village, and you would sleep. Sometimes we'd sleep out at night, or if we didn't have a place to sleep, literally it was like shiplap, but really old, like barnwood wood, and the slats, and you could just see right through. And there was dirt floors on our mission. I remember one time I was sleeping. I was in Tecunamon. I was on the border with Mexico, and I was sleeping on the dirt floor. And I was just sleeping on the dirt floor on top of my sleeping bag because it was so hot. And I remember waking up in the morning and looking up. I'm looking up like this. And my mission companion, who's a small little Guatemalan guy, he's like 5'2", he's got a broom, this makeshift broom, and he's standing over the top of me like he's going to hit me. And I looked at him and I said, ¿Qué está haciendo? I said, what are you doing? He goes, don't. He goes, no te mueves. Means don't move. And I said, okay. He said, I'll move. And there was this giant tarantula had slept on my chest that night.
Oh my gosh.
And because I was warm, so it just slept on my chest. And then he swept it off. I mean, it was the size of my hand. And I have big hands. It was the size of my hand. And he took the broom and swept it off. This tarantula off my chest. Was really, really, really interesting. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What was it like teaching the people there? What was the proselyting like?
It was amazing. People are just the most humble people you'd ever want to meet. Very humble. Didn't have 2 cents to their name. Very poor. I think the average income at that time for a family was like $2 a month. Wow. I mean, that's how poor it was.
Wow.
And they were just so humble. And it was a humbling experience to be amongst them. I considered myself poor, but I was like, man, I'm not poor compared to this. I've got first world problems compared to what these people are going through.
Wow.
They grew up with no light. They grew up with no lighting, no running water, no heat, nothing like that. No refrigeration. My whole mission, we never drink milk. I never got milk because there was no refrigerators. What you do if you ate, what we typically did as missionaries, we'd hire some old lady to make us tortillas. She'd make us tortillas and some black beans over a campfire, and we would just have tortillas and black beans, and then we'd have bananas or fried bananas, which are called plátanos, but we would have bananas, and bananas are so delicious. They're so different than what we have here. We could walk down a trail and you could pick a banana off a banana tree, and it's like ice cream. It tastes so good.
Oh yeah.
They're so sweet and so they're just so sweet, and this melts in your mouth. Very different than what we have here, because they freeze them before they ship them up here, right? So the food was very different. I didn't have milk. There wasn't like pizza. They did have Coke, and they did have Pepsi products, but it was warm. But we always drank. Our mission, our mission president said, just drink Coke, because it's going to kill all the stuff that's in your stomach anyways. As you get sick, just drink the Coke, and then you would drink the Coke, but you never drink the last inch of your Coke, because in the bottom of the Coke bottle, there was usually typical flies or other insects in the bottom of the bottle. So you never drank that last portion.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was always fun. So yeah, it was, that was interesting. But the people there are just amazing. Right. And, we didn't, you didn't baptize a bunch of people, but you had good baptism rates, right? It wasn't like going to Japan or going to Germany or going to other places where they didn't have any baptisms. So we had, I had some great experiences with some families. I remember my last day in my mission, I baptized a family of 6, and that was a great experience for me, leaving the mission on a high note. I also remember my first baptism. This cute lady, she was probably in her 40s, and she was like 4 foot nothing, and she was interesting. She was a lot of fun. She laughed. She was very happy, and she was just the cutest thing. So when I went to baptize her, she accepted the gospel, and she was so happy to get baptized, and because she knew it was different, she felt the Spirit, and we got her into the baptismal font, and I got down to baptize her, and because of her size, I had to baptize her with 2 hands. So I said the prayer, and then I grabbed her with 2 hands, and I threw her down, and they kept her down, and I said, "Are we good?" And they said, "Yeah." And I brought her back up. It was so cool. I'll never forget that. And she's laughing, everybody's laughing. It was great. It was a great time, and we were actually. It was interesting because we did. There were some places where there were chapels in some of the other cities in Guatemala where they did have. We'd find to go to a chapel to do a baptism font, but if we couldn't, we'd baptize in the river.
Cool.
Which was really cool too.
That's neat.
Yeah, so got to do a lot of that too.
Wow, family of 6 on your last day.
Yeah, that was neat.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What was it like teaching them?
It was special.
Yeah.
It was just so special. They just accepted the gospel. They were very receptive, and their kids were just amazing. And just it was just a neat experience.
It's cool to think that Heavenly Father's like preparing people for the right time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you think about it now. So I have the opportunity to volunteer for the church right now, and I work in the missionary department now, downtown Salt Lake City, is one of my places where I work. And I think a couple of years ago they told us we were like 55,000 missionaries, and they said we need you guys to build the infrastructure for 80,000 missionaries. And I thought at the time, 80,000. I'm like, no way, that's not going to happen. Well, you fast forward today, and we're about 80,000 missionaries.
You're kidding.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And you see, as you have just stated, the Lord preparing the groundwork for people to come into the church, and all the missionaries are coming out of the Philippines, and all the missionaries that are coming out of Africa and out of Brazil still. It's just, and all the baptisms that are occurring. It's just amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
And even just hearing your story, like how Heavenly Father placed these people.
Oh yeah.
The bishop, the stake president, the families. Yeah. That influenced you. It's cool to think that like He knows each one of us and He cares about each one of us individually.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's he definitely has a plan. You may not know it, but He's going to guide you. If you're receptive, He'll guide you through where He wants you to be. I always tell this. So I have a saying that says, you have a plan and the Lord laughs because he's got his own plan for you, right? Who would have thought, you going back to as a 15-year-old homeless, living on the streets, living in the back of my pickup truck and north side of Vegas, who would have thought that I would now be living here in Highland, Utah? And I have awesome kids. I never would have thought in a million years this would ever happen. Never. I always thought I was going to still be living on the north side of Vegas, scraping by, digging ditches, trying to get by in life. That's what I thought was going to happen. But the Lord's blessed me, and he had a plan for me, and it's amazing.
Well, I feel like the difference is that you knew that you didn't want that. Even though you didn't know like the life that you have now, you can envision that, but you knew that the life that you saw, the path that you saw wasn't the one that you wanted. And so you actively chose something different. Like you were going in the dark, uncharted territory, and the Lord took that. How have you seen that since coming home from your mission? How have you seen Heavenly Father guiding you and directing you?
Well, it's interesting. I got home from my mission. I had an account at Deseret First Credit Union. That's where I had kept my money for a mission. And I went in there to check on my balance, and I had $5 to my name.
Wow.
And the only reason why I had $5 to my name was because I think the credit union manager put his own $5 in there to keep my account open because he knew I was serving a mission. And so, I had that help. Always somebody, I was being blessed, and so as the start of my journey, as I got home, trying to figure out what I was going to do, and when I'm getting off I remember getting off the airplane in Vegas, and I got home, it was late at night. It's getting around 8:00, and I stayed on the plane, and I'm like, because I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know where I was going to sleep that night. And I started thinking, wait, this is Vegas. The airport, everybody knows, the airport stays open 7/24, right? It's open all the time. It doesn't shut down like other airports. I'm like, okay, I'll stay here at the airport. I'm going to sleep. I'll find me a little cubby hole somewhere secluded, and I'm just going to sleep here at the airport. My first night home from my mission. And I remember getting off the plane. I'm walking around and just trying to figure out, okay, I can sleep here. And I think, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to eat, tomorrow? I don't have any money in my name. I'm thinking, what am I going to do? What's my next step, right? And I was walking down the terminal down in Vegas, and lo and behold, my grandma showed up. She said to me, Corbett Gerald, it's my first name, my full name. She uses full name, I'm usually in trouble. but she said, Corbett Gerald, come with me. And I said, okay. And I said, what are we going to do, Grams? She's like, you're going to stay with me. You're going to stay the first couple nights until you figure things out. You can stay with me.
Wow.
And so as we were driving home, she asked me, she goes, have you anything? Are you hungry? I said, I'm starving. And she goes, what do you want? I said, I want a glass of milk and I want a pizza. I hadn't held.
In 2 years.
2 years. No milk, no pizza. So we got some, she had, I had milk and pizza for dinner that night. And
that's a combination. Interesting.
Yeah. And it was interesting is that I've heard this from others, but because I was so used to sleeping in a hammock or sleeping on the floor, when she had this little spare bedroom, and she goes, you can sleep in there. And I said, okay. And then I tried to sleep on the bed. I couldn't sleep on the bed. I slept on the floor.
Oh, you're kidding.
Because that's what I was used to. And the next morning I got up and she looked at me. She looked at the bed and then she looked at me. She goes, did you sleep on the bed? I'm like, no, I slept on the floor. I've done that for 2 years. I was just normal for me. So it was kind of funny. So after that, I just, I was just, it was a lot of prayer and trying to figure out, okay, what's the next step? One foot in front of the other, right? And so that very next day, wow. I'm day one at home in Vegas, the day after my mission. It's like, go find a job. And I found a job working in construction again. And I asked the guy, I said, when can I start? He goes, you can start tomorrow. So I had a day off, and then the next day I was working construction again.
Wow.
And it was just, I was on it, man. I was going.
It's kind of a returned missionary's dream, though, because some people come home and they're like, what am I going to do all day? Because you just spent the last 2 years just working a lot.
Yeah, I couldn't afford to do that though.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I didn't have any money. I didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't know what I was going to do.
Wow.
There's a lot of defining moments. I've had a moment in my life where when I was in high school, again, it's defining moments, right? You can either choose to pack it in and give up, or you forge ahead. I remember once it was Thanksgiving, and I didn't have anybody to spend Thanksgiving with, and so McDonald's was having a sale on Big Macs. Big Macs for $1, Big Macs for $1, and a Coke and a fries got you $1.50.
Wow.
So it was a great deal. And I literally had $2 in my name, and that's what I had for Thanksgiving. And I remember sitting in McDonald's thinking, looking around, looking at all the other homeless people there that were eating there with me. And I thought, this ain't going to be me. I'm not doing this. It was another defining moment. Like, I'm not going to do this. Right. And so again, just choices, things, experiences, right? Defining moments in your life. Everybody has them. And do you pack it in or you forge ahead, right? And so things like that. So when I got home on mission, I was on that working construction. And I remember the first day I was working construction, I got put on an all Mexican crew. I mean, when I say Mexican crew, these guys didn't speak any English at all. And so half the day I'm just helping them pouring concrete, helping these guys. Didn't say much to them. And then they were talking Spanish. And about midday, I kind of warmed up. It kind of felt like I could talk to them. So I started speaking Spanish. And it was funny. When guys, they started listening to me, and they were looking at each other. And like they said back to me in Spanish, they said, you speak better Spanish than we do. So
that's funny.
It was a lot of fun. So I was with these guys for a while, and had a good time. And it was a great opportunity. And then from there, a life just took off. I moved up to Utah to go to school, and I've been up here ever since.
Wow.
Yeah. I think Heavenly Father has a plan, and He guides you. If you're receptive, He guides you,
and you're willing to work.
Yeah.
I'm so shook that you just take things as it comes.
Yeah.
With a can-do attitude. There's no other choice. I can't believe you didn't have a place to sleep when you got home from your mission.
That's pretty humbling. It was really humbling.
But the faith, though, to just keep going.
Yeah. So, it was good. It was good. And I look at I look at where I'm at now. I look at where we live at. I look at our community, and I look at the 15-year-old boy back in Vegas, and I look at the path that I took, and I see a set of footprints in the sand. They're not mine. They're Heavenly Father's carrying me the whole way. He's the one that got me here, and helped me get to this location.
Wow.
There's no coincidence that I'm living here. It's not because of me. It's because of Him. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people? You have such an interesting background. And what advice would you give to people, members of the church, in being more inclusive and receptive and open to people with backgrounds like yours? How would you have wanted to be treated? I feel like we've talked in the past about how people have been judgmental or various reactions people have had with you.
I think you can't judge a book by its cover. You look at me, big and ugly comes to mind, right? big and ugly and strong, right? And then you look, and then people hear rumors about, that's Gary Heath's boy, and his dad's a drunk, and he's an alcoholic, and he's a drug addict, and he must be one too. So no, can't hang out with my daughter, or you can't hang out with my kids. And I think we don't give people a fair shake. I think we judge too much by how people look, their appearances, right? And we're quick to judge. And I would just say that you need to just put your hand out and welcome people in, and then, treat them as how you'd want to be treated, right? That's the golden rule, right? And I think if we did that, there would be a lot less problems in this world. That's what I've lived by, and I try to treat people really fairly, and I don't judge people by how they look. It was an interesting conversation. Another lesson I learned, I was on a golf trip back to North Carolina, and I was golfing with a bunch of guys, and one guy in the group, he just looked like a normal guy, and he just talked like a normal guy and was just very quiet. And we were talking about cars. And I remember this is like 2005. I just bought the 300. And it was the coolest car out, I thought, at the time. I love that car. And they're asking, like, what kind of car do you drive? And I'm going, I drive this Chrysler 300. And it's so cool. And I kind of put my foot in my mouth. And I asked this guy that was really quiet. I said, hey, John, what do you drive? He goes, oh, I have a couple cars, and no big deal. And after the round, his friend came up to me and says, hey, just so you know, John has a collection of 12 Ferraris, and he has a total car collection of about 30 cars. And he owns he happened to own at the time one of the largest mortgage companies on the East Coast. And so he was very humble. And that was another lesson that I learned, is that, you got to be humble and be very careful how you judge people. It's just one of many things that, you take notes. I always try to take a step back, not say too much, kind of observe what's going on around me. I've done that out of habit, because my life as a young kid was always changing, and you never knew. I never knew how my dad was going to be when he came home, whether he was going to be sober, whether he was going to be drunk. I didn't even know if we were going to have food on the table that night, And so everything was very fluid for me. And I've learned to be very fluid. I'm very whatever comes, right? Just handle it, right? And I'll say this for my dad. He taught me how not to be. What he taught me, he showed me what I didn't want to be, right? I hate to say it, but he wasn't a great person. I mean, I was abused. My sister was abused. Physically to this day, there's some things I can't do, like chew gum. I can't still chew gum because my jaw's still from being dislocated so many times from my father. Having night terrors at night. I still have those today because of my dad. Things that I will never, ever get over. But he taught me what I should be as a person. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, gotcha. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be like him. So I think as a member of a church, I think we just need to be more receptive to everybody, and have our arms extended to everybody that comes in to our ward or our chapel or our branch, And I think where everybody is Heavenly Father's, children, right? We're all children of God, and I think we need to be. Sometimes we forget that, and so just kind of that's how I try to be. So
that's amazing. I love the perspective that you have, and I just really respect the way that you live your life, and you were dealt a hand, and you chose to become who you became and who you are now. And I so respect you and your family, and I look at your kids and the way that they treat people, and that's a testament to who you are as a father and how you and your wife have cultivated this family culture, And I think that's incredible that you really have broken these cycles of abuse and trauma and created a family life that's really healthy for your own kids. That's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully we've done that, and hopefully, we continue with that. And I think I'm looking forward to Ty to see what he does with his life, and Jared and Addie, and super excited for what they have in store for them, their lives. So,
yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share about your testimony of the gospel of Jesus Christ, or about your relationship with him or our Heavenly Father?
Well, I just know that our Heavenly Father has a plan for each and every one of us, as long as we're receptive to him, and that he is the light and the way on this world for us to return to live with him. I think it's so important that when we keep an open mind and that we're not judgmental and that we are receptive to his spirit and receptive to the, what do I call, the gentle touch of a nod or a gentle push in a direction to go, and be receptive to change too as well, because you never know what's going to happen. We look forward to seeing what great things you do at Notre Dame, right?
Thank you.
And I think, you're a great example of that, right? Going into the unknown because you feel that you have to be there. And I think I respect that. Things like that, I think we've got to be more open-minded. And I know that that's helped me a great deal in my life.
Thanks, Corb.
You betcha.
Thanks for this conversation.
It's been awesome. Thank you for having me.
I love you dearly, and I will miss you.
We are going to miss you too. Yes. We hope that when you're in town, you come by and say hi, and we can talk, and hopefully you have a great time at Notre Dame.
Thank you. God is good all the time.
Yes, indeed.